Hello, I'm Marites Vitug, and this is Worldview. We take a look at global, regional, and national affairs in conversations with officials, newsmakers, and analysts. Joining us from San Francisco, California is Rene Ciria-Cruz, an editor at PositivelyFilipino.com, an online magazine based in San Francisco. Rene also writes a column for Rappler. We will be talking about immigration and other issues affecting the immigrant community in America. Rene, welcome to the show. Let's start
Thank
with...
you, Marites.
Yeah, thank you for making time. You know, Rene, you said you've been living in the U.S. for more than 50 years. That's not half your life. But help us make sense of what's happening in Trump's America. So shall we start with the deportation of immigrants? How are Filipinos affected, or how are they going to be affected? You wrote in your column in Rappler that Trump intends to end family sponsorship, the right of all U.S. citizens to petition family members for permanent residency and eventual citizenship. And you said that 71% of Filipino migrants who received a green card in 2021 did so through this avenue. So would you have any updates here? Are they really pushing through with this plan?
Well, they're concentrating right now on ending birthright citizenship, because I think that's more vulnerable to Trump challenge, because there have been cases of birth tourism in the United States. People getting their childbirths done here, so that the child will be an American citizen, just like Kitty Duterte, who's an American citizen. So that's very vulnerable. I think they'll try to use that as an entry point to abolishing the entire right altogether, which is a constitutional right. So there's now an active lawsuit against the Trump administration for trying to end that. In the past, he had expressed an intention to end chain immigration. This is done through family reunification. He has not issued an executive order yet specific to that way of accepting immigrants. But it's clearly his intention that he had expressed during the campaign, and even the Project 2025, his ideological guide, had expressed a similar interest in ending chain immigration. But so far, no specific action yet. In terms of, what was the other part of your question?
No, just updates on that in that regard. But you mentioned about birthright citizenship, and it's being challenged now in the courts.
Yes.
And you said that this is an issue that's easier to win by the Trump administration.
The administration has a kind of like a seemingly valid concern about people coming here as tourists just to give birth. That's a vulnerability for this right, but it is a constitutional right, and hasn't been challenged before. So, and if he tries to do this, I mean, he's trying to do it, and it's really a more challenge against the Constitution, a constitutional provision. So I'm just saying that it has more, rather than family reunification, it's harder to say you shouldn't be reunited with your family,
Yes, and okay, so there seems to be a stricter implementation of immigration law there. Of course, the case of Llewellyn Dixon.
Yes, from Washington State.
Correct. So what's difficult to understand is that she already served her time in a halfway house and paid the fine. Right. And then she was able to renew her green card. Yet, this time she's being, there's going to be a trial on her case.
Mhm.
Why is this so? I mean, is there a really renewed sort of an eagle eye on, practices that have been, dismissed before?
Right, definitely. Even so to a point that even if you're a permanent resident, if you're coming from abroad, lawyers are advising people who are coming from abroad to make sure this is to make sure that there's no incriminating evidence against them, either in terms of past violations, because at least one case, not a Filipino, but one case, one person was detained because of traffic violations.
You mean
So
as
it's
in
really
vehicular traffic, not human
yeah,
trafficking?
yes,
Oh my.
yes. So people really have to be lawyers have been advising everyone, not just Filipinos, to be careful, uh, because in my experience and the experience of many travelers, the the ports of entries, the customs and immigration ports of entries, it's probably the most fascistic point in the U.S. Institution in the U.S. Because when you get there, you have virtually no right. They don't. They want if you ask for or for a warrant or any kind of documentation why you're being arrested, they don't have to tell you.
And
They don't. So it's a very strict area, and very. It seems that they have more power against incoming travelers, immigrants, and they can just deny you entry at whatever cost they feel you should be denied. So it's really I would see why people would be terrified going through immigration, especially at this point, at this time.
so you've never seen this happen?
Even if you're permanent resident, there's no assurance that you won't be detained. And the point is, even if you were released, you know, it's still a disruption in your life. Especially if you're detained and sent to another state. It's a serious disruption, and this is what makes the chilling effect on people, because like 300 up to 300 foreign students have their visas have been revoked, either for suspicion of having spoken out at a rally, writing an editorial, or whatever. And State Secretary Marco Rubio says, there'll probably be more revocations of student visas because he considers them lunatics.
So this is the first time this has ever happened in your 51 years of living in America, Rene.
Well, yeah, but in case of the first Trump administration, the victims were mainly the Muslim community. The Muslim travel ban, and But now he's really. I think the first Trump administration was mainly what they call it, characterized by incompetence. This time, it's incompetence plus repressive measures, plus retribution against enemies in the media, in the scientific community, everywhere. So it's a really a terrible situation, not just in terms of immigration, but all aspects of American life is very different.
So what's the recourse? The courts?
Well, the courts are right now the main arena, but it's a very. It's not. There are a lot of shortcomings or disadvantages. For example, the main about 69% of the Trump executive orders have had hold orders against them, by the courts. So about out of 109, maybe 73 have been stopped by the courts. But it's not a ruling by the court on whether they have a case. That's just temporary injunctions. which means they still have to fight it out. So that's one disadvantage of the courts, although it's the most available venue right now for resisting these arbitrary actions of the Trump administration. Furthermore, the other disadvantage is that the Supreme Court is controlled by the Republican Party, which has given the Trump immunity. And also, during the first Trump administration, he had deployed kind of what I call sleeper judges, because they're all pro-Trump, and so there are many of them in the federal courts. So there are disadvantages, but I guess the most dangerous part of this is that they control Trump's influence on the Supreme Court.
So let's go to the issue of DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion. Do you have like stories or anecdotal evidence in the Phil-Am community? Have they been affected by this, they're deleting programs that have to do with DEI?
Well, a lot of Filipino Americans work in the hospitals, nonprofits, and private corporations, many of which have been kind of like really being obedient, or even anticipatorily obedient in dismantling DEI programs. I have no anecdotal evidence or anecdotes of Filipinos being affected, but considering that 7% of the 10,000 7% of the 10,000 federal workers dismissed by DOGE, the estimated 7% are Asian American. So there's no Filipino data, but I think 7% of federal workers are Asian Americans. Okay. So far, DOGE has dismissed more than 10,000 federal workers, and more are going to be dismissed. So that's all I have about DI figures.
Yes, and earlier we talked about immigration problems. How about the promise of Trump to do mass deportations? He already started, but it looks like it's the Latin Americans are the targets.
Right.
How about Asians? Have they made any announcements about Asians?
Not really. It's more Latin Americans, because they're the most visible, undocumented in the undocumented community. Mainly because they really are the workforces in many industries: construction, farm work, so agriculture, construction, and service industries. So they are most visible, and therefore easy to target. In terms of the Filipinos, I think the figure so far is that I think about 24 Filipinos were detained and deported by the end of last year, and about 80 more are in detention. But I don't know whether they were detained because of the recent campaign, ICE raids, or they've been detained way before that. So those are the only figures I have. But Latin Americans, Venezuelans, Salvadorans, right now are the main targets, and also Mexicans.
Yeah, and
they will have a problem though, because I think right now they're targeting mainly people with documented convictions and criminal records, But increasingly, they're just targeting anyone that looks Latino. Stopping people and asking for documentation of their residency and like that. And some of these arrests are really very arbitrary. In one case, an immigrant's car window was smashed by ICE agents just to detain him. It's really, and they have now a policy of if the undocumented immigrant that was detained has children, they could be separated, or they could be, even if the children are legal residents or American citizens, they will be detained together. So there's a lot of contraventions of individual rights taking place.
Yeah, and you also wrote a very interesting piece on what you call lexical and content cleansing. So even
Oh,
that
yes.
is happening. I mean, unbelievable. In government websites, they've taken
Right.
out certain phrases.
Right.
Is this
The
still
New
going
York Times,
on? Yeah.
the New York Times reported this, and it references to civil rights, Rosa Parks, slavery. Those are all being cleansed, and then in schools, a lot of books are being banned by school districts, either in compliance with state laws or new state laws, or just in compliance with the Trumpist atmosphere. A lot of these books, have references to historical references to civil liberties, or slavery, or homosexuality, or sexual freedoms. It's the cleansing is short of burning books, Nazi style. This is really as far as it's gone. This time around.
So is there pushback? I think you wrote that there was one school wherein I think they resisted this
Yes.
cleansing.
Yes, because the school districts are the local kind of governors or managers of schools, So because of a state law that prohibits discrimination, they've asked this teacher to take down her sign that says everyone is welcome here, because it could violate anti-discrimination laws, which the subtext of which is that not everyone is welcome. Not everyone should be welcome. And who should be there? Who are the only people who should be there, should be welcome? Is the question. And presumably they're white Christians, straight. So, but the students walked out. High school students walked out, and the community supported them. So I think at this time the school district is still reconsidering whether they're going to. Meanwhile, the teacher has already reposted her signs.
Okay.
And the students also expressed their support not only for her, but all the other teachers in the school district who might want to put up, similar signs.
Yeah.
So there's some pushback locally, and if the nationwide demonstrations are to be considered, I think there will be more grassroots pushbacks. But the real opening is really during the next midterm election for Congress, because regardless of what Trump says is a big mandate from the election, the Republican majority is really very short, very narrow, both in Congress and in the Senate. So I think it depends on the enthusiasm of the resistance on the grassroots level that some of these Republican seats might be flipped, and that would give, therefore, the people the Democrats and Democratic supporters, a better chance of actually fighting back through legislation, against any Trump actions. Because right now, the Congress, both House and Senate, they're really locked into the Trump orientation and Trump actions. They're all supportive of Trump. Only now there's a little bit of dissension taking place because of the tariffs. So not all Republicans in Congress support the tariff. But how many more than those who support it, I don't know right now.
Rene, we talked earlier off cam about the April 5 protests, and do you think that is an indication of how the midterm elections will go? That there is this widespread, or I mean, in all 50 states, including red states, that there were pro-democracy or anti-Trump demonstrate. Do you see this as an indication of how the midterm elections will go?
It's a possibility because it means that Democratic voters, liberal voters, and even independents are energized because of what they're seeing every day. Every day there's an outrage from this administration. So I think people, and then the case of Elon Musk, I think invested $25 million in the election of state Supreme Court judge election in Wisconsin, and he lost. So this is a good indication of the fighting chance that Democrats have in the next midterm. And so I think there's a possibility because of an energized base of Democrats and possibly also independents. You know, there might be a little bit of vacillation among the MAGA base, the core base of Trump, but I wouldn't count on it because it's really the base of close-minded base. A lot of them are conspiracy theorists and poorly educated, which Trump says he loves. He loves the poorly educated.
Oh my. Rene, you also wrote, this one it really struck me that you compared what happened in Nazi Germany to what's currently happening in Trump's America. Is this a comparison shared by many? I mean, do you really see this happening in America?
Yes, unfortunately. I was willing to suspend disbelief, but you know, usually, especially in the first Trump administration, there's a lot of incompetence, a lot of outrageous actions, and many kind of like academic, analysts, liberal intellectuals would say, oh, this is an outrage. But the democratic institutions of America are strong. Today, you have people like Larry Summers of Harvard, Erwin Cherminsky, a lot of notable legal minds are saying this is a crisis, or this is heading to a constitutional crisis. And the effect that the administration is actually waging a war against the American constitutional order. They're saying that. And these are people who would, you know, first give second thoughts to kind of any drastic assessment of where U.S. democracy is heading. And they're right now sounding the alarm.
So the institutions that we around in the world are, I mean, we've always been praising America for the strength of your institutions. Do you think these institutions are being eroded?
That's the effort of the Trump administration is to erode it. Right now, there are signs of erosion because, you know, institutions like the military, health, they're all kind of like they're all issuing kind of like regressive policies, or dismantling DEI. So what to watch out for is the U.S. military, because the U.S. military is the most integrated institution of the United States. It's been desegregated since 1948, after the war. And of course, when it comes to crisis, you have to look at what the military will do. And so it's the military that we have to watch. And right now, the official leaders of the civilian leaders of the military, people like Hegseth, Waltz, these are incompetents, and out and out, like in the case of Hegseth, out and out white nationalist supremacists. So yeah, it's not. I even compared it to the McCarthy period, and I think it's worse, because the McCarthy period, the target was the Communist parties in the Cold War, and then the Communist Party, its organizational expressions or suspected organizational expressions. Here, the target is just basic human values. As Elon Musk says, empathy is the worst, the biggest weakness of Western civilization. He says it's okay to be empathic or compassionate, but not at the expense of civilization. Meaning, it's dangerous to the civilization as we know it if we're empathic and compassionate. So what it is that is a espousal of extreme individualism, and that's what they're practicing. So it's kind of worse than the Cold War is over. They're not fighting the Cold War; they're fighting humane values.
So when you talked about the military, do you see signs of the military being politicized? Like in other countries?
In other countries, I don't know about other countries, but in the United States, so far, a lot of military leaders are critical of Trump, but they are retired. Okay, so I don't know what the current military leadership, what views they hold. Although during the election, there was a news report or a couple of news reports that the incumbent military leaders, officers, top leaders, were Trump proofing the military. I don't know what it meant. Maybe they just they're just making sure that basic policies are intact and can be protected. But the way the Defense Department is going about this lexical cleansing, it's not a good indication. Maybe that's just the civilian part of the military, or civilian leadership of the military. But whether the military will tend to express lack of confidence in the Trump administration, we don't know. Yeah. So it's an open question.
Okay, maybe just to wrap up our interview, the world is watching and we're waiting. What could be the breaking point? The assault on democracy, and you said this extreme individualism targeting human values. So that's untenable because you use...
It is untenable.
Yeah. So what's a breaking point? I mean, how do you see this being resolved?
I don't know. It has to be depends a lot on the midterm elections, whether we'll be given a fighting chance to resist this more concretely and more widely. I think the European Union is doing the right thing, trying to inoculate themselves against any damage from this. I think right now the community, world community, is more concerned with the impact on the world economy rather than on their individual rights of their own citizens. You know, the individual rights of Americans might be in jeopardy. Um, uh, I think their concern would be in that score whether how much it would influence the right wing, the far right in their own countries. But in terms of the more immediate impact, is the tariffs and the trade war that they're facing with Trump. And so, because Trump's point of view, the way the art of the deal, he sees the art of the deal is inflict damage or threaten damage and then negotiate and transact.
Yes.
That's how he's doing this. And so that's throwing the whatever existing economic order right now that has been worked out between Europe and the United States and Japan. That's up in the air because of Trump's policies.
Thank you so much, Rene. On that note, it's a note of uncertainty, but we are really very interested in what's happening in America. So with the rest of the world, thank you for joining us. So that's it for today's show. But before we
Thank you
go,
for having me.
yes, we hope to talk to you again, maybe after the midterm elections.
Yes.
But before we go, we'd like to invite you, our audience, to download the Rappler Communities app. Tell us your thoughts or ask us your questions on the Global Affairs chat channel. Thank you for watching. This has been Worldview with Marites Vitug. Till next time.